What about like trophy potential and expectations?
Yeah.
'Cause like a lot of guys, you think of Mexico, big wide bucks or just giant racks. Is that like an actual realistic expectation, or is that something that just, you know, it depends on kind of where you're at or how hard you want to hunt, or is it just, is it crazy with big giant deer?
Mexico is an interesting place, very interesting place. And you have to be careful with, you know, introduced genetics. We won't say names or anything like that, but you know, there's a lot of, it's become a whitetail. It's ran the same way as whitetail. So if you guys, you know, you guys are familiar with the hunting industry and what has happened with whitetail. They're
ranching for whitetail.
Ranching for whitetail. There are genetically pure areas to hunt whitetail, and there are areas where genetics have been introduced. Maybe not like the steroided freak, but there's definitely been a certain strategy of bred genetics and then bucks released into that system. Mexico's the same way. I mean, there's true, you know, steroided freak high fences, which, you know, it's like the Liver King, right? If you look at him and think he's natural, got a bridge to sell you over the ocean in Nevada. It's the same. If you look at a buck and you don't know that it's high down there specifically, you don't know that it's high fence, like it's pretty easy to tell the high fence bucks down there. The introduced genetics is a big thing down there. And typically, you know, those will be in some type of like 3-sided high fence or something to just kind of contain, so you can kind of get a
natural
feel for
border or like a natural thing, something.
Is it high fence pretty common in Mexico?
There's quite a few.
Do you know if there any different regulation on those, or they ran the same? I mean,
so
they
the most you'll find high fence for, in my experience. And now, you know, granted, I'm not a Mexico biologist, so no, I don't want anybody coming after me here. I'm just speaking from
from your
total experience of being down there a handful of times. I always see the high fence primarily for sheep, for bighorn sheep. That's like, then they'll kind of do some other species in there, depending on, you're right, they'll introduce some genetics to the mule deer or coos deer and, you know, kick them out, whatever. So you know, you see some of that. You see like a 3-sided high fence to kind of contain, because you can, you know, there's just rules. Rules are made to everybody who tries to circumvent them. A 3-sided high fence breaks the rules, you can enter it. It's quote unquote free range, all this stuff. But then there's the genetically pure Mexico, right? Like just like the genetically pure places for whitetail, Mexico still has those, and they're tough to find. And that's why I talk about guys like Phil Kramer, Jay Scott, Dark Holborn. And it's fun to hunt those pure Sonoran bucks, right?
Yeah, just hunting deer.
Just hunting deer. And it's purely free range, no introduced anything. And like, you're seeing Sonora for what it is, which I personally think, you know, everybody goes down to Sonora for a 30-inch 195 dark horn typical. Like that is what Sonora produces. Like that is the upper echelon of, you know, that's what everybody dreams about, is a 30-inch slick 4-point, you know, good eye guard, great eye guards. They all have good eye guards.
I've noticed that.
Man, every one of these bucks has giant eye guards.
And like, that's, you know, that's what you picture in your mind. Now, having said that, it does always throw a couple non-typicals, right? They're much less,
it's not as common, right?
It's just not as common. Like, very hard to shoot a true non-typical down there, which I'm unbelievably fortunate and blessed to have done this year. Completely lucky. But then you look at like Clay Hill's buck, and it's just a slick, big ass typical.
Yeah,
and like
this other 4-point in here is just
a slick, big ass typical
4-point.
You know, and that's like, that is when people talk about the pure form of Sonora. Like when you really talk about guys who have been hunting Sonora for 20 plus years on truly free range, unintroduced genetics, like that's what's in your mind. It's that dark horned 30-inch buck.